Welcome to the Competitive 40k podcast brought to you by Vanguard Tactics. This is a Warhammer 40k podcast where we analyse the meta and help develop strategies to help you become a competitive 40k player. I'm your host, Stephen Box, and it is our mission to raise the standard of the game both on and off the tabletop. This podcast is brought to you by the Vanguard Tactics Academy, the only online coaching course for Warhammer 40k. And the Vanguard Tactics Academy takes you through everything you need to know about 40k, from how to write the optimal army list for your faction, to advanced tactics on the tabletop and advanced game theory. We'll also teach you our step-by-step process to prepare you for any tournament. And the VT Academy will not only help you win more games in the right spirit of the game, but also help you get more value and enjoyment from your hobby. But will also help you feel more confident and comfortable every single time you step up to the table. Hey guys, and welcome back to episode 7. Now today I'm joined once again with Joe and Jack, and today we're going to be talking all things about tilting and essentially how you can have the right mindset going into a game to make sure you can just stay, what would be the word, because tilting, for those, we're going to explain what that is, but we want to make sure that you guys are staying positive and you can always enjoy your experience. I think we've always had, times of salt or getting upset or frustration or anger at the game, sometimes even your opponent, and we want to talk about how we can avoid that so that we can make 40k something that we do enjoy constantly and you can always get the best out of and ultimately enjoy it and have the most fun. It's for many of us, and this is myself included, probably the biggest single factor for why I love 40k so much is because it's really helped me with my mental health, and we're going to touch on that later in the show. So, Joe, how are you doing today?
I'm very good, thank you. This is a very good idea for a podcast. I like it, especially after the whole entire year that I spent first playing you.
Okay.
Yeah.
And our first year of friendship, yeah?
Our first year of friendship is summed up in this entire podcast.
I love it. Jack, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm all good. I'm excited to cover this topic. It's something that I've personally suffered with in the past and the very recent past as well. But I think we can have a great discussion about how to identify it and deal with it as well.
I can't believe that from you, Jack.
I know, I'm such a cool, calm and collected character.
Joe is shaking his head in disbelief if you could only see him.
No, if only we had recorded this in some way, like with a camera.
That was clearly a size 11 foot hole put through your nice shiny studio, and we'll leave that there.
And my crumbled blood angels who are still on the floor. Yeah. Anyway, so let's get into the discussion around tilt. So, Jack, how would you, if you had to explain to somebody what tilt is, what would you say to them?
So I think for me, tilting is when you are ultimately focusing on negatives. Everything's going wrong for you. Your dice have betrayed you. Their dice are going really well, and you're taking a very negative look on the game itself, which can influence your decision making. As the prime example, so that's how I'd kind of summarise tilting.
Okay, what about you, Joe, without just looking at the screen that I've just brought up for the exact definition? What does it really mean
I
to
would
you?
say you kind of lose sight of the end game. You concentrate more on those rolls of ones than you do of sixes, kind of thing. And you only see the negative, and through that you then you lose your composure and you lose your ability to see the way forward in the game. Everything just goes bad, and then you end up in a real bad mood.
In a dark place.
A real dark place.
When you said you can't lose your composure, I just had the vision of old school when he's shouting in the changing room with his dressed up as a bear, and he's like, we cannot lose our composure. That's what I've got visions of now. But yeah, essentially tilt. So I've just put it into Google, and the Wikipedia definition is: tilt originated as a poker term for a state or of mental or emotional confusion or frustration in which a player adopts a less than an optimal strategy, usually resulting in the player becoming over-aggressive. Ring any bells, Jack?
I don't know what you're on about, to be honest, Steve. That does not ring any kind of bells with me whatsoever.
So placing an opponent on tilt or dealing with being on tilt oneself is often an aspect of poker, which, poker is very similar to 40k. So, there is that element of probability, there's that element of randomness, and also player skill, and there's also the game of the tabletop, and also the game going on outside the tabletop as well. So, for me, I think you guys have summed it up really, really well, and I think the most important thing for me is that you're just not able to think clearly and make the right call. And ultimately, it's not something that really gets better. Once you are starting to tilt, it is a downhill spiral from there, and there's only been a few times in which I've sort of, number one, I would say, noticed I'm tilting and actually done something about it, rather than just letting that spiral take you deep down into that dark pit. So we want to talk about that today and some of the signs that you can identify that you are tilting. And I'm sure that if you think back to, if you're listening now, so think back to your last game, last tournament, last event, whatever it might be, I'm sure there was probably somebody you played that was tilting. Maybe you were, and maybe you've got your own telltale signs as well that we can sort of cover. Because as soon as you can identify those signals, then hopefully you can start to do something about it. Okay, so what are some of the things that we can do, Jack, before you go to an event to set you, or even a game, to set you up for success? What some things have you done in the past?
So when you're talking about a game in isolation, you go, what do I want to achieve from this game? Is it a practice game? Is it a full warm-up game where you want to be competitive with your training buddy or something like that? Are you down at a local gaming club? And set the parameters of what you want to achieve from that game. Is each one you want to take just a non-competitive narrative army and you're just going to go and have fun, and the dice will almost forge the narrative for you, or are you actually practicing for an event and you want to set and using that as your parameter of what you want to achieve from that, if it's trying to find out interaction rules, interactions, or things like that. So I think when you're looking at a game, is setting what do you want to achieve from it, and then that translates straight over to a tournament. What do I want to achieve from this tournament? So it might be, I want to get a positive win record, I want to win the event, I want to get 5 games under my belt of 9th edition, and I want to learn as much as possible. So I think setting those goals and expectations prior to even walking to the tabletop are critical in trying to avoid bad feeling and tilt.
Nice. And we'll cover that, we'll go into that a little bit more. But Joe, what about you? Anything that you've kind of done when you've, maybe when you're preparing for a tournament, or you sort of mentioned playing me for a year, what are some of the things that you've done to avoid that?
Yeah, so after first meeting you and playing you a lot, I realised very quickly that obviously your skill level was higher than mine, and that the chances are I'm probably going to lose a lot of my games, to begin with, until I learn what I need to learn going forward. So I had a very honest conversation with myself, and I talked about with myself, becoming aware of what kind of player I am and accepting what level you're at.
Okay,
is a strong one. So if you're going into an event and you think you're you think you're a big deal in your local area, but you only play a bit against 2 or 3 people, but then you go to a big event, and you're going to come up against a lot of really strong players who potentially are going to just do you over. So one of the things that I adopted going into our kind of games was knowing I'm not going to win this game. What can I do better this game than I did last game? So what units, if you're playing against them, what units this game am I going to try and kill? How many points am I going to try and achieve this game? And do things that ultimately improve, but have that mindset knowing that I'm still probably going to lose.
Okay, yeah. No, so I think that's a good mindset to have, and it's a mindset in which, I mean, I look at competing from a slightly different background because I came from competitive bodybuilding, and in bodybuilding you have no idea who's going to turn up on the day, and it's not like in bodybuilding you can adjust anything on the day. Okay, so in bodybuilding you spend 2 to 3 years trying to build as much muscle as you possibly can, and you're putting in repetition after set after different exercise, weeks and months and years to get as much muscle as you can. You then spend 24 weeks or more dieting down to get you ready for this one day. Now, it doesn't matter what happens on the day, because all you can do is be your best on that day. You just need to basically not mess anything up, so just keep your posing routine correct. And the reason why this is so important is because people often say to me, did you know so-and-so's competing against you? How does that make you feel? I'm like, well, there's nothing I can do about it. There's nothing I can do on the day. I can't go over and try and upset his routine or anything. All I can do is be my best. That is it. So I just need to focus on my own game, and if it's good enough, it'll be judged appropriately. So that's my mindset when I go to an event. But very similar to what you've just sort of spoke about there, Joe, is you try to be better than you were the day before. That's all you can do in bodybuilding, and that's kind of the same level that I adopt in 40k. So I sort of approach things in a very similar way to what Jack said. On the Academy, we've got an entire lesson in our event preparation module all about goal setting. So what is it? And you want to set 3 types of goals. And essentially, rather than looking for a goal setting can be a bit of an interesting word in itself, because rather than a goal or a desired outcome, ideally what we want is a process, okay? Because it's the process in which will lead to a great result. You don't say, for example, you don't go into a basketball game and just go, cool, I want to win this. You can do that, but it's not going to help you do it. The thing that's going to actually help you do it is score more baskets than your opponent. So then you need to break down that process of how you do that. So the process in 40k of winning games is, okay, well, how am I going to score the most amount of points possible in the primary? How am I going to score that on the secondary? And I need to make sure that I've painted my army fully as well. So what we're looking for is processes. How can we get a consistent and reliable, repeatable result more often than not to ensure that we're going to be successful? And it's the process that we need to look for. So when you're looking and making a goal, you need to understand that first of all, what you need to do is set a non-negotiable. Okay, so a non-negotiable is, okay, if all else fails, what one non-negotiable outcome do I want to make sure happens to actually achieve enjoyment of this event? Because if you don't set a non-negotiable, then unfortunately you end up tilting and you'll leave that event unhappy, okay? So a non-negotiable could be, all right, Jack, what would a non-negotiable goal be for you? I'm putting you on the spot now. What could a non-negotiable goal be?
Well, at an event.
Yeah.
I think at the moment it's getting a positive record in a set of games. So if it's 5 games, 3-2, or if it's 6 games, say 3-3.
Okay.
So that's kind of a step back from where I was performing in 8th. In 8th, I was looking to get 4 and 5 wins.
Okay.
Because it's been a shift in the rule set, I've actually just adjusted my targets down to get used to the new edition.
Okay. What about you, Joe? What would be a non-negotiable for you?
I don't know. Maybe you could go for, like, I want to get X amount of points in a game. So let's say
in every game.
In every game.
Okay.
So, say for instance, you could start real low and be, I've got 5 games, all five games. I want to get scramblers done.
Okay.
Or you go 4 out of 5 games. I'll get
Okay.
scramblers done because I might come up against a Space Marine player who's got nothing but infiltrators.
Okay. All right.
So you can start something simple like that, or you can go, I want to max out 2 of my secondaries every game.
Okay. So for me, what you've both said there, I would say were probably more a realistic goal rather than a non-negotiable. So a non-negotiable goal would be something like, I want to make sure I make a friend at every single game I play. That's something that you should be able to achieve.
Yeah.
Regardless of the outcome, is I want to be able to go and make a friend. Right? That's a non-negotiable goal. A non-negotiable goal is I want to turn up and I want to finish 5 games of 40k. Yeah, these are things that it doesn't matter on the outcome. It doesn't matter what, like, dice can't affect it, your opponent can't affect it whatsoever. Then these are like a non-negotiable goal. So then you can make sure you leave that at the event and go, well, did I hit my non-negotiable goal? Yes, I did. I played 5 full games of 40k. I'm going to leave happy. Therefore, if you can have that non-negotiable goal to set the founding of all other goals that then precede it, you're always going to be a lot more positive about your experience in that game or tournament. So a lot of people do this with weight loss. Obviously, like my background's coaching weight loss and obviously bodybuilders. A non-negotiable for a bodybuilder or for somebody on the show day would be, I want to turn up, I want to do my quarter turns and I want to do my posing routine, and yeah, I want to connect with somebody like-minded, right? So that's a non-negotiable, and I want to share a meal with my family after, yeah? So then the realistic target is when we start to get into the things that you've done there. So Jack, you've set a really good realistic target, like it's a goal in which, like you said, is achievable, which is fantastic. You want to make sure the next level is achieving something realistic. And then what you've mentioned there, Joe, about hitting something in every single game, that's a really good process. So that's a process goal that will mount up to something that's going to be a bit more realistic. And then after that, you should have something called a stretch goal. So Jack, what would be a stretch goal for you? What would be like, if you hit this, you're going to be like absolutely ecstatic? So you've got your realistic goal, and then what would be a stretch goal for you?
It'll be getting to those, 4 and 5s, with a win rate. That'll be my stretch. To even starting to look and getting near or on to the podium.
Okay, and then what would a stretch process be? Like what could you do every single game to make sure that you were achieving that target?
I think it's taking a bit of inspiration from what Joe just said. It's monitoring your point scoring. So, I'm winning games, or I'm just losing games by 5 or 10 points. How can I eke out those additional points to convert my narrow losses into narrow wins? How can I make my narrow wins into bigger wins? How do I consistently score more points every single game?
Yeah, nice. And like you said there, Joe, as well, like just a sort of stretch goal for you would be, okay, well, a realistic target would be maybe I want to score 60 out of 100 points every game, but a stretch goal could be I want to score 70. Yeah? So these are process goals that are really, really good to set in place, in which if you haven't really thought about, just take time to do so. And as Jack mentioned at the start of this as well, when you are leading up to an event and you are practicing, you also want to have this conversation with your opponent. Share your goals. I recently had a practice game against somebody, and again we've got a really good lesson on this, all about how to actually play test appropriately and what's the difference between play testing and just playing a game with a friend. But it's one of those things that I said, my outcome for this is that I want to see how often I can get mental interrogation off with my army list. Turns out not many, but that was a really good test for that outcome. I now have some conclusive data and evidence to put to one side and go, cool, I don't need to do that secondary. It's not really one for me. I thought it would, but it's not actually going to be. So there was a clear outcome, and then there was a result in which I can now utilise to inform better decision making later on. Because at all times, no matter what you're doing, you're always going to suffer from decision making fatigue. And this is the other thing that can also mount up to increasing the likelihood of you tilting, is that the fact that you do get decision-making fatigue. So we can probably talk about some ways in which we can eradicate decision-making fatigue on another show. So, Jack, you're at an event, you've got your goal set, you in terms of what you want to achieve. What things can you do to also help you in the lead up to the tournament, in terms of information that could be provided by a tournament to help you?
So in terms of that, getting yourself in the right mindset for the event is all about having knowledge of the rule pack and the tournament rule pack. So that you'd hope that in most tournaments that you attend, there'll be a mission pack already set out, which missions are coming in what order.
Okay.
And any specific FAQs or rulings, for example, that need to be watched out for. So you make sure you fully prepare and kind of get an idea how you would like to play these missions out and practice those missions.
Yeah, nice.
And as well as the terrain setup, which you may accept, lots of tournament packs now include either diagrams or descriptions of how they're going to lay the tables out in terms of number of obscuring pieces, dense cover pieces, for example. So when you're building your list in readiness for the event, you already know what you're expecting. You know how to deal with the dense cover or the amount of obscuring terrain on there, and you're ready for it, rather than you get into the event and it becomes a shock at the table on game one.
Yeah, no, I like that, because clarity is so important when it comes to preventing tilt, right? Because one of the things that can trigger tilt is anxiety, confusion, anything that's unclear whatsoever, or any gotcha moments. I mean, I'm sure we can probably all name a time when, there's been a gotcha moment and it's been the thing that set you off or tipped you over the edge. So all these things bubble under the surface. So if you're a TO, then give as much information as you possibly can, or stipulate, actually, the mission pack is going to be random, the terrain is going to be random, so please come prepared for a random event, because that in itself is something you can prepare for, right?
Yeah, you have to prepare for everything,
Yeah.
But the important word in there is you're preparing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. So that's the most important thing. So let's have a little chat about, before we go any further, Joe.
Yes.
Can you name a time when you felt like you've really tilted your hardest? Is there a moment in your 40k career where you think it just went from bad to worse? Share it with us.
Yes. So it was a Warhammer World, one of the GT heats, and I was like, it was the second one, and I was like, I really want to qualify this time. I took Imperial Knights, Sisters, and Admech.
Okay.
Right. And the Sisters was literally just Celestine and a unit of girls, just so I could just double move her straight in. I was like, I really want to do this. First opponent, Admech player, he rolled off. I rolled a 1. He rolled a 6. He went first.
Okay.
And he literally tabled me in 2 turns. And I was like, that's it. It's all over for me. Kind of thing. I'm never qualifying. I quit the hobby. Kind of thing. And then going into game 2, I was like, I'd gone away for lunch. I kind of like stewed on it. And then first roll, see who goes first, rolled a 1 again.
Okay. And
he rolled a 6. And I was just like, I was so close, just hurling my dice across the room. And then so he went first. Turn 1, took out like all 3 of my knights.
Okay.
Like straight away. And then at that point, I was like, I know I've lost this game. I know I'm not qualifying. Like, the rest of this whole weekend is a write-off. And that kind of like put me down bad.
Okay, so let's go over what we spoke about before. Did you have a non-negotiable goal?
No.
You had one stretch goal and that was it.
Yeah.
You didn't even have a realistic goal.
No.
You had a stretch goal. But you didn't have a non-negotiable goal and you also didn't have a realistic goal. So what could you have done to prepare yourself better for that? If you look back now, the player you are today,
Yeah.
what would have you looked back and thought, what would you have done differently?
So I actually took that I went to the Heat 3.
Okay.
The one after that one, and I was like, I'm going to go 3-2. So I don't mind losing.
Okay.
I'm going 3-2. I was like, if my opponent goes first, if I know my opponent goes first, I'm going to build an army that can go second.
Good, nice.
So I've built that in. Like, I know that going second, I'm not going to get like ruined. If I come up on tables that don't have much terrain, I've got an opponent that can table me really quickly. I'm going to build that resilience into my army.
Okay.
No,
Did you do better?
I qualified. I went 4-1.
You went for what list was that?
That was
the Harlequins and Drakari.
That was my Drakari Quins list.
Mm-hmm.
So hilariously, lost my first game to the same AdMech player.
Okay.
That I lost to.
What are the chances of that happening?
But this time round, he seized on me.
Okay.
And I was like, I was like, I hate you. You're dead to me.
Okay.
So, but I was like, I'm gonna take it on the chin. We're just gonna power through this. I've still got 4 more games to pick this up, kind of thing. And I was like, I can still qualify on a 3 and 2 because I've got a nice pitted army. If I'm happy and nice with this guy, get my favourite game votes, it'll all be fine. After lunch, sat down. I was like, what can I do in my next game? How am I going to approach it? And I was like, what's the mission like? What's the terrain like? How am I gonna deal with this kind of thing? And then I won all 4 games straight off the bat after that because I kind of altered my mindset from just fuming.
And I mean, I already know the answer to this question, but do you feel like you had more practice going into that event as well?
Oh yeah. Well, I started off with a straight Drakari army, and then me and you play tested for
weeks.
13 weeks, I think it was.
Yeah.
And like every week, like changing
the mission,
tiny little aspect of the army, going first, going second, like taking units out, putting units in. Then we're like, we'll put Harlequins in, and then kind of play tested that, moved units around basically.
I can remember one playtesting game where I actually sent you outside.
Yeah.
You were about to do something, and I could see you were on edge at this point. You just couldn't see what you needed to do until I instructed you to go outside.
Yeah.
And then tell you to come back in. And actually, like, I know we laugh about it now, but that serves a really valuable point that we're going to touch on later. No, I really like it, Joe. Thanks for sharing that. What about you, Jack? When's a time that you felt you've tilted? Joe's wetting himself here.
So, relatively recently, and it went over the course of 2 weekends actually. So what started it off, I bought a last minute ticket to an RTT. So I got on the Thursday, I bought a ticket for an event on the Saturday. I had a list that I fancied taking it after playing 1 game with it, and I think I was under the impression that I was going to win all 3 games.
So just a non-negotiable goal there, then, Jack.
Yeah, obviously from all the points we've just discussed, it was completely the wrong. I wanted to get I wanted to win the event without doing all the hard work behind it, as you just said with Joe's experience. 13 weeks of training with that list. I was like, no, I'm not doing any of that. I played this list once. It's awesome. I'm going to win.
Best tower, we go.
Turned up to the event. I had a hard matchup turn 1 and got absolutely annihilated within 2 turns. So that already starts to. I kind of took away from my overall winning strategy for that event straight away. So I was already kind of not. My heart wasn't really in it anymore because I was like, well, there's not really much to play for now. I don't really attend RTTs either. Because they're a 2-day event. If you lost the first game, you've got plenty of time to recover. So I lost that game. Got into game 2. It was a close game. Went down to the wire, but again lost that one. And by the time I got to game 3, my heart wasn't in it. I wasn't really interested in playing the game, and there was some weird rules interactions which was TO'd on the day, which I didn't agree with, and it didn't put my army in good stead. But you suck it up and you play with it, which left with a little bit of ill feeling in that game, and I was definitely tilting, and to a point where I was probably a bit rude to my opponent during the game. But after the game had been done, I made sure to apologise because I accepted the fact that I was tilting hard at this point, because I'd turned up and not achieved what I wanted to do, and it gone completely the opposite way. I wanted to win 3 games, lost 3 games. But upon reflection, there's a good reason why that happened, because I was completely underprepared for that event.
Yeah.
And then that rolled on to the week after when we played together, Steve, didn't it?
It sure did.
And we set our armies up and we started playing the game, and you went first, and it felt like you threw the sledgehammer down turn 1 to a point where I couldn't recover from this point because of the way the secondaries were picked and the way you played your first turn, which you did very well. It just drew me straight back to the weekend before in that first game, when the game was almost taken out of my hands after turn 1, maybe turn 2. And then again started tilting, which is more based on what happened the week before. And we discussed it, didn't we? It's like, would you have felt this way if you hadn't attended that RTT the week before? And the answer would have been no. It would have been a completely different mindset from myself.
Yeah, the interesting thing that we do here when we do our battle reports is we set up a game for YouTube, don't we? Where one of us will go first, and it's a random roll-off on the day. We deploy our armies, we pick our secondaries first, then deploy our armies. Then we roll off to see who's going first. We then play that game out. We then, for VT Plus, which is our sort of subscription or paid for channel, because we don't have a Patreon at Vanguard Tactics, we just have our VT Plus. So if you want to support us in any way, then that's definitely the best place. Plus you get incredible content over there. But on VT Plus, we play the same game again, but we swap over who goes first. So when you're deploying your army, you know that you're going to have to go first and you're going to have to go second. You also have to take the same secondaries both times, which means that it really puts a really interesting dynamic on how you do those factors and also how you play the game, because we're not just playing one game to see who wins, we're actually playing 2 games to see who is the better victor over both games. So, go on, Jack, what are you going to say?
Yeah, so I think for me that was such a big eye-opener, because it's the first time that I got involved with doing the battle reports for YouTube and the Plus channel. It was such an eye-opener in terms of secondary picking, how much that can influence on turn 1, turn 2. So I learned personally a lot from that experience. So, go and check it out. It's watch both battle reports and you'll see the polar opposite and how those games play out.
Yeah. Because obviously this battle report will be coming out tomorrow, technically, so you can check it out over on YouTube, the first part where I go first. And you'll see how the way I played my turn 1, but the really interesting thing is then how it was set up when you went first the next day, wasn't it? So do you want to share a bit more about that?
Well, how the game played on... Okay, on the second day, yeah. So very much it was my game to lose. I think it's a fair way of summarising it. Because of the way our secondaries interacted, the first term was actually quite influential, and how our armies played as well. I needed to push out onto the board and gain ball control straight away and grab on these objectives and kind of force you back and make you deal with all these cheapy chaffy units with some of your more elite units.
Yeah, and the reason for that was because I took Raise the Banners and you took the one where you've got to hold the middle of the table.
Yes.
Now, both of which rely on not having an opponent within scoring range at the start of your turn. So if I'm in the centre of the table before you get a chance to score there, you can never score it. And if you've always got a model within scoring range of a banner, I can never put one up. So first turn was massive, not for the simple fact that we're going to kill each other turn 1, because I don't think that's the case.
Nothing to do with damage.
No, which a lot of people think it's a turn 1 game in that respect, but actually it was a turn 1 game because we both picked incorrect secondaries, I think, looking back.
Oh, no, certainly. I think, and it's something that I'm going to be working on my practice games, is taking my first selection of secondaries and then analysing them going first, going second. Yeah. So what happens because in your head you know if you want to go first or second, and you're basically, typically like I'd like to play going second. So actually, I need to think about my secondaries going that way, and then consider if I'm forced to go first, what then happens. So are these the right secondaries to take? Are they flexible enough, depending on who goes first or second?
Yeah, no, I agree. And what was something that, because me and you ended up doing an entire academy lesson on that game, didn't we? There was a certain turn that was so influential in terms of decision making, and we talk about in that lesson the decision that you made and how tilting may have affected your decision making process. So again, that is on the academy if you want to see that. So we don't need to cover that too much today, but what were some of the things that you felt when you were tilting? What were some of the emotions that you were feeling during this time?
I think to the I was doing well. I was doing well in the game. I was doing well on points. Forcing you to do things that is not normally in your play style, so caught me off guard a little bit. And then it got to a critical point in the game, and I made a bad decision because of probably the feelings from the day before and the week before that.
Yeah.
And then I kind of felt everything was against me. The dice are against me. You were making all your saves, all your hits, and I couldn't roll a hit roll to save my life, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of everything. You kind of feel like everything's going against you. Nothing you do is right. So then you start making desperate plays. And the wrong decision. It's like, I've got to do this now, and in rational thinking that it's the wrong decision because you're basically asking for dice to go make all those random things that needs to go in your favour, which is completely unrealistic, and you're always going to end up disappointed.
Yeah, it's like you were trying to make plays in which you expected or needed. When you start to need dice to do a certain thing for you, the game's gone very badly. Like when you need all your hits to hit and all your wounds to wound and all your opponent to fail all their saves or whatever. But there was something... Which
is fine in like turn 5 if you're making a last gasp play.
Yes.
To try and win a game, but not in turns 2 or 3, which we're talking about at the moment.
Yeah. Or if you just want to eke out a few more points, you just do a Hail Mary or something. So yeah, absolutely. You go, if I make this charge, it changes it. For example, if you're down and you could swing it, great, go for it. But use that CP reroll and try and get a 6, maybe if that's what you desperately needed. I don't know, but I think with some of the things that talking about triggers to identify that you were tilting, because it was only a couple of days after you sort of messaged me, didn't you, and said, well, I think I was really tilting at the weekend, sorry, sort of thing. Because when you left me that weekend, I was actually quite upset for you because I could tell you were really upset. And I was worried you didn't have a good weekend.
No, yeah, obviously I had a rough couple of weeks on the tabletop. I've been trying to use Tau in 9th edition, which is I'm really struggling with at the moment to try and find a build that works into it and plays the missions well. So I'll welcome any comments and if you have success stories on Tau, because I've been trying. It's my favourite faction. I've been really trying to embrace 9th edition of the missions and try and make it work. And at the end of that weekend, it felt like that it was outside of my control. There's nothing I can do with this army at the moment to make it work. So I was a bit down in the dumps about, my favourite faction. Does it really work at the moment? All very negative feeling.
Yeah, because that was something that you said in the game a few times was, there's nothing I can do. Like I think I did one smite and I rolled a damage 3. And I think that was another thing that you said, there's just nothing I can do because I think I killed 2 drones, to kill you off an objective. It just seems like it all mounts up, right?
Yeah, in that moment, you just I need you to roll a 1.
Yes.
So I've got the play, but obviously the average is a 2 anyway. So it should be water off a duck's back that that happens. And if you're not tilting, you just brush that off. But it's just that's the prime example of you're concentrating on all the dice rolls that are going against you, rather than with a rational head you just accept it. It is what it is. You did 3 damage, fine, and the dice will typically average themselves out. But when you're in a negative mind, you will always draw attention to any dice roll that is a negative to you or a positive to your opponent, and you'll ignore all the dice that are going in your favour. So you and opponent take a completely different look on how the game's playing, because in my opinion in that game, I had no good dice rolls in the whole game and all yours were perfect. But that's not the view that you'd have on that game.
Yeah, no, I agree. No, completely. And I think it's an interesting one when you're playing against someone that's also tilting as well, because I don't think you can thoroughly enjoy it if your opponent is tilting.
Yeah, because you almost end up in a situation where every time you do something, you apologise for it.
Yes.
And that leads to like a real awkward situation. You're like, because then you feel like everything I do, I'm doing because I want to win the game, but my opponent is just spiraling down and down.
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, should I do this? Should I do this move? I know it will benefit me, but my opponent is going to get worse.
Yeah.
And then you both end up in this weird situation of just awkwardness.
Yeah, because that was something we had in our game, wasn't it, Jack? And I said, well, this is the obvious play for me that I need to make. And I knew it would literally break the back, so to speak. And it kind of did, right? And that was obviously why we did that roundup and things. But so let's think back to maybe a time in which you've been playing, and there's a point which comes to my mind. I was playing against an absolute gent, and his name is Chris. Chris has been on our podcast before. We are playing in the 5th round of the LGT. And bear in mind, that day I'd also had a terrible, terrible experience. Probably one of the worst 40k experiences I've ever had in my life that happened that same day. So I was going into game 5, I play against Chris, and I'm just like, I want a super chilled out game. And luckily, I was playing against an absolute legend. And Chris, his army's painted beautifully, his orcs are just so fun to look at. And Chris had the worst rolling I've ever witnessed in my life, I think. And there was a time when he was rolling his looters out this was turn 2. He's rolling his looters out, and bear in mind, looters can shoot twice. So this was the 3rd time he was shooting this unit, and every single time he had got 1 shot. For the third time in a row, he got 1 shot, and I was like, "Can you please re-roll that?" And he said, No, it's fine. I said, "Chris, I want you to re-roll that dice because that is not a true reflection of what should happen in this game. I'm not going to feel great about it. You're not going to feel great about it. So you please re-roll it." And in the end, I can't remember if he did or he didn't, but I can remember just me and Chris, we had a big old hug about it, and me and Chris have now become great friends ever since that game. But there was just a few moments in that game where I really felt for Chris and his dice, and he was in a terrible matchup against Orcs into Ultramarines. Is not a good matchup for him whatsoever. And we ended up having a quality game. But I just remember, like, there was just subtle things that I tried to do to make him have a more enjoyable game, because I'm round 5, I'm not going to win the LGT. I'd already had 1 loss that weekend. I just wanted to make sure that, I enjoyed my last game after the one before. And and that's exactly what I tried to do. But is there anything else Jack, have you ever played against someone tilting, you think, okay, there's something I could do, or maybe something somebody's done for you, Jack, where you thought, actually, that really helped me get out of tilting spiral?
You come across it quite a bit with playing Tau, because it's a strange army to play against, because if you're not used to it, the amount of firepower that it does kick off, it can give your opponent a bad feeling, because you could hit them if they're not expecting it. You could hit them hard in 2 turns, and that's kind of how they want to play. It's most people that have played Tau enough know that, and they play into it and to play around it, and they expect to take heavy casualties, but they'll eke the game out and try and win it that way. But when you're playing against someone that is not aware, and they lose half their army after, or 3/4 of their army after 2 turns of effective Tau shooting, it's I've seen it before where people have started to tilt, and it's you try and just appreciate and identify that they are tilting, and to try and like adjust your behaviour to suit. So you don't celebrate big dice rolls if something goes well, and you kind of be more low key about things, and try not to make the matter worse. That's the kind of way that I deal with it.
So just kind of be like humble with the dice rolls rather than Okay, cool. I like it. What about you, Joe? Anything that you've done or have done to yourself or to help tilt?
I think what you can one of the good ones is like with you, like with the D3s kind of thing. Like someone just rolling really really bad, or like I had one turn at one of the qualifiers where a unit of Bullgrin charged into my solitaire, and he's got the suit of hidden knives thing on. So and he's like minus 2, minus 3 to hit. So every roll of a 1, 2, and 3 that you roll on me, you do a mortal wound to yourself. Obviously, I have to roll the 2s for it. And as you know, Bullgrin ran in and did like 18 mortal wounds to themselves, and I was like, re-roll this. Because this is madness. It's like he'd kind of already lost. We'd already seen that he'd lost. So I was like, just re-roll it because they'd killed themselves before they'd even done any damage to my army. And he re-rolled it and he did like 10.
Yeah.
And I was like, you've still got a few models left to do something. I think stuff like that, like if you know that like it's only just going to make your opponent worse, or they're constantly rolling below average.
Yeah.
Just be like, re-roll it. Or like, I played against someone who had loads of dreadnoughts, and I took out like 4 in a turn, and I was like, on the last one, I was like, we'll just say he's alive with like 2 wounds or something, like because he'd failed 14 out of 16 saves kind of thing. I was like, he'd still be alive kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I was like, we can either re-roll it or we say he's still alive, but he's got the barest amount kind of thing.
So what you're doing is taking the edge off extreme dice rolls.
Yeah.
Because I think at the end of the day, you want to, depending on how that game's going, you can't manufacture a result, which is obviously unfair to the rest of the event as well, which I've got different feelings about, but ultimately we want to I think everybody there wants everybody to have a good event and to enjoy themselves, and as a TO you want your players to have a good event. As an opponent, I want my opponents to enjoy playing against me, and I want that for everybody else as well. So some of the things that you can do for somebody is just offer them, look, do you want to go outside? Do you want to go outside and get some fresh air? Or can I get you a drink? Like, these are just simple things that, or do you want a drink? Put the clock to me, I'll go get you a drink. Because that just like that nice, thoughtful comment is enough to just ease somebody to have a bit more chill. So that can often be like a little bit of good grace there is often nice. I think the worst thing that you can do is play a gotcha moment on somebody at that point. Like if you're playing, I've had it before where I was playing against somebody a little bit less experienced than myself, and he tried to bring down a unit of infiltrators or something within 12 inches of my death watch. And I said to him, if you put them there, just so you know, I've got the stratagem Auspex scan, and what I can do when you bring them down is shoot you, and you're going to lose pretty much averagely your whole unit. And I knew that moment wouldn't change the game result whatsoever, but he admitted to me that he'd just come over from AOS, he just started playing 40k. Like, I didn't want this guy to have a really bad experience, so I just let him know of this stratagem that most people know of, and I didn't want him to be caught out because I knew that would set him off, or it could be a trigger potentially for him to have a bad experience against me. So I think, again, if you're up against an experienced player, winning the game should come down to knowledge of the game, skill, and a little bit of luck, right? They're the three main factors that sort of influence who should win a game. But when it comes to somebody that doesn't have the experience or the knowledge, well, don't take the mick out of them. Do you know what I mean? With like, okay, well, I got this stratagem to do that. I can do this, and but I think as well, like TOs really have to step up their game with, like what we tried to provide was number one at the moment is making everybody feel safe. That's really important at the moment, because if people aren't feeling safe, they're already going to be anxious, and that could set people off. Making sure you're really clear of your terrain rules, because obviously, Jack, something that happened to you, like you said a bit, that the terrain rule you didn't agree with, rules is written, the tournament organizer didn't do anything wrong, right? I think you've seen that being played a lot in a lot of places.
Yeah,
it doesn't feel right, and that's a GW problem.
Absolutely, it needs a formal FAQ. That thing needs a formal FAQ.
Yeah.
Because as you say, the rules as written is one thing, but in my personal opinion, it's clearly not the intention of that rule.
Yeah, I agree. So I think from a TO's perspective, having clear onset or clear mission packs, terrain, how you're going to rule certain things. I was really clear, before we started playing. Right, a few things, guys, that have come up recently. Drop pods can't fall back. They can't use a desperate breakout stratagem because they can't fall back. I think I said about a caster can't cast multiple smites. So there's loads of different things that I just put in place to say, look, like a demon prince couldn't block a demon prince, I think I said.
Yeah.
So then people just knew, and then evidently GW have now FAQ'd those things, which is great, but it can take a bit of time. So as a TO, you sometimes need to make a bit of a sort of tentative move in the right direction to make sure people aren't going to have gotcha moments, aren't going to have feel bads. They've got plenty of, like, GW terrain before wasn't very dense, was it? So that's where you got table turn 1.
Yeah.
So again, if you're rocking up to that event, then it's on the TOs to provide a little bit more terrain so that people don't get, okay, my opponent goes first, they win. That should never be the game. So I think we've covered some really, really good stuff there. So just to recap, obviously, always set a non-negotiable goal. Jack, I'd like you to start doing that.
Winning events.
Turning up with a demon print, like a golden demon standard army.
Yeah,
that's like
non-negotiable.
Yeah.
Then have your
completed it, mate. Demon standard. Done. You're welcome. Everyone's seen my armies.
Yeah. I mean, I might have had to do a bit of Photoshop the other day, but anyway. So the what was I saying? Non-negotiable. Have a realistic target, then a stretch goal. Be honest with yourself where you're at. Yeah, I think that's the other thing as well. Joe, do you want to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think just be honest with yourself before you go to like an event and be like, am I a good player? Am I a great player? Am I a bad player? Or am I just mediocre? And it's okay to be bad if you know you're going in the right direction.
Yeah.
If you're taking the necessary steps and learning, getting as many repetitions in. Everyone's bad when they start.
Yeah.
But I think when you go to an event, don't think that you're like the Don.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I've beaten my mate's grot army 10 times. I'm literally the best guy in the world, and then don't get salty when you come up against a guy who's running an all aggressive White Scars army.
Yeah,
and if you haven't prepared for it, so you got to be like when I started doing all the tournaments, I was like, I'm not a good player. I'm an okay player. I know I might win 2 out of 5 games, but in a couple months' time, I might be winning 3 out of 5 games.
Yeah.
And it's all about knowing where you're at, sticking in your lane.
I like it. Stay in your lane.
Yeah.
Any last thoughts from you there, Jack?
Yeah, just to conclude my kind of back-to-back bad weekends of the hobby. What I did to deal with it, I took a weekend off Warhammer. So I was like, didn't play any games. Didn't watch any battle reports or anything like that. I just concentrated on some other aspects of my life.
Sold all your armies, didn't you, as well?
Sold armies, obviously, in a tilty rage. No, but I took a full weekend off it. Just go, right, just going to put it down for a little bit and just concentrate on some other stuff. So when I go back to it, I've got a completely fresh mindset again, and I can look at it with a clean state. Yeah,
and I think the other thing to be aware of is that there are going to be some dreadful matchups out there for you. We do play a game a little bit like rock, paper, scissors, so there are going to be some games you're going to walk into and you're just going to get smashed 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
And you just need to take that on the chin, right? So sometimes you have to go first because to even have a chance, like we sort of said earlier with the Tau game, like first turn was massive for both of us. I needed first turn in order to win, and you needed first turn in order to win, right? There are some times where you will be walking into a dreadful matchup, but again, focus on your non-negotiable goal and just focus on being a better player today than you were yesterday, and then try and be a better player tomorrow than you are today. And if you can do that, you'll consistently enjoy the hobby a lot more. And obviously, we spoke about this a lot, but for us, for me personally, 40k helps my mental health so much. I had a really, really bad life experience not too long ago, and actually, Jack, it's a massive thanks to you and Dan and Mark that really helped pull me out of that situation. And I really focused on 40k as my outlet. And I think I was driving to you literally every weekend, wasn't I, in Birmingham?
Yeah.
We were getting games in, just going out for dinner, just enjoying life. And 40k was it has been a massive thing. The community's been so good to me. Which is why I've put all of my eggs in one basket now and going, full-time 40k. So I'm doing only minimal coaching for my nutrition and training, but my business now and everything now is all revolving around 40k because I see the good it does for so many people. And, I've been able to share so many incredible stories with people on our academy, whether they've had PTSD or people have reached out to me with, certain illnesses or ailments or, addictions and things, and they've really found 40k to be a huge help. And something that I decided to do in April was give a little bit of money to Movember, and so far I looked today actually at how much we've managed to raise so far from our event and through the donations of the academy, and also the students as well have also donated along with that. We've managed to raise over £700 now in our goal, I set the goal at 1,000 to be a bit of a stretch target, but we're already close to that already, which is brilliant. And I really want to do something massive in November. So guys, stay tuned for what's coming, because I'm going to run something big in November based on all the support will go to Movember. I don't think I can grow a moustache, so Joe, I have to leave that to you.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I think me and Joe could have a pretty impressive moustache off if we hit the right number of. If we raise enough money, okay. I think I'll happily plunder into a filthy tash for a month.
I want like a World War I biplane pilot, big bushy moustache.
No, I like it.
Like Captain Price from Call of Duty.
Well, you boys better start growing. Yeah. So, but I'm planning something bigger than that, than just moustaches. I know that is big.
Whoa! Whoa! Steady, says the man who can't grow one. Yeah. Damn.
Look, I'm compensating, okay?
Is it like a charity event to help you buy some trousers so you don't have to wear shorts all year round?
Could be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Joe's never seen me in a pair of trousers, apparently.
Yeah.
But it's going to get cold in this studio, I think.
Yeah, or a looser fitting t-shirt.
Steady on, lad. Anyway,
talking about non-negotiables.
Yeah, absolutely. Tightest fitting possible, please. Anyway, so stop body shaming me. Anyway, it's all about mental health, and you're over there body shaming me.
No, it's not. It's not the body shaming. It's fashion.
Okay, fashion shaming me. Okay. Anyway, so trying to troll me today on Instagram as well.
I know.
If you want to watch our stories, it'll probably be gone by now. But Joe taking all chances to troll me. Anyway, so yeah, something big's coming for Movember. So stay tuned for that, and I'll release a little bit more as I know more. But there's a few people I need to reach out to to get this thing off the ground. But in other news as well, we are hosting a streamed event because we had to cancel our Grand Series tournament number 2. We're hosting a little streaming event, aren't we, Jack, in October, the 3rd and the 4th?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to do 0 practice and win, so that's my plan.
Yeah,
I like it.
I think for this event we should let the people choose what armies we run.
Okay.
As a completely off-the-cuff, happening right now decision.
Okay.
Because obviously it's myself.
Yeah.
You, Stephen.
There's 6 of us, obviously, for COVID
the 6
restrictions.
of us. Ben Jones is coming up. Cad is playing. The manager of Foreground. And who's the 6th man?
Francis.
Francis is coming. And I think what we should do is, for myself, you, maybe Jack, we put a poll out for what armies we have access to,
Okay.
and we'll run them.
Okay.
I want Ben Jones involved with that if we're doing it. We can
Yeah,
make
'cause
him
then he
play
can't-
so he doesn't want to.
Then he can't like meta chase it, can he? That's the
Yeah,
thing.
the filthy meta chaser. I agree on all counts. So we could do it at random, or we could all write a list, put it in a hat,
Yeah,
and then we can draw the list out of the hat, and that's what we're playing on the day.
but it has to be a good list. We can't just put like a
Well, yeah, because there's a chance you could pick it out.
yeah.
If
like,
it is,
like you turn up with your Grot tank army.
hey, I'd steamroll you boys with the Grot tanks. So yeah, we could do something like that. But anyway, that's going to be on the 3rd and the 4th over on our Vanguard Tactics Twitch channel, which I'm yet to set up, but I will.
Yeah. We need
So
to think. It's more of a Twitch practice event than it is.
yeah. Anyway, we're going to get it set up. So it's not really going to be a tournament. We're going to stream some games and just have a good time with it. Obviously, because we had to cancel our event. But anyway, that is everything for today. I think we've hit an hour. I was going to talk about my list of the week, which is my Chaos Night list, because tomorrow you and I are recording a battle report against the Gene Stealer cult, aren't we?
Yeah.
But I think we're going to save this because it'll be interesting to talk about on another show. But anyway, I think and I hope everybody has really, really enjoyed this. And if you would like to help Vanguard Tactics out and donate to Movember through our link in our page, then you're more than welcome to, and you can find the link to that on the blog page, which is www.vanguardtactics.com/blog/S2EP7, and you can find the link to our Movember page if you want to check it out. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for your time, and also thanks for being so honest in sharing your experiences.
That's all right.
Really appreciate it, and hopefully you guys have took away some good little goal setting tips as well, and these are things that I've used with clients for the last 10 years, so they're pretty well practiced. So yeah, anyway, guys, take care, and we'll see you. Oh, remember, leave us a review, and we'll see you on next week's show. Take care. This podcast is sponsored by Foreground Publishing, who are the leading designers and manufacturers of tabletop pre-painted terrain. Check out the VT Terrain series, which is perfect for competitive 40k games. Just unbox, build, and play.